Okay. Hello, today is November 19th, and we are here at the Thomas F. Eagleton Courthouse in St. Louis, Missouri. My name is Clara Bass, and I'm here to interview Leslie Smart as we discuss the Hazelwood v. Kuhlmeier Supreme Court case. Hello, Leslie. It's great to have you here. Can you briefly introduce yourself and explain your connection to the Hazelwood case?
Hi, my name is Leslie Smart, and I am one of the plaintiffs for the Hazelwood versus Kuhlmeier case.
So, how did you find out that the U.S. Supreme Court had agreed to hear this case?
Probably through the media first. I, at the time, was probably interning at one of the local stations, so probably heard it there first, and then through my lawyer, my attorney, Leslie Edwards.
What was your reaction to finding out that your case had made it to the Supreme Court?
So, being honest, initially I was not happy because we wanted the appellate level. And so I was hoping it would end there and we would just end up being victorious. I knew that if we went to the Supreme Court level, we had a chance of having it overturned. So, but I was hopeful. So initially had a little bit of trepidation, but it is what it is.
So, what was going on in your life at the time, and how did this news that the case was going to the Supreme Court affect you?
So at that time, I had to be in college. So as a college student, the fact that it was going to the Supreme Court didn't affect my day-to-day life. It was an interesting bit of trivia about me with my friends and the professors and that sort of thing, but it didn't impact my life. I thought that because I'd graduated and all of the issues were behind me, that and we couldn't, undo what had been done. I thought that the fact that it was going to the Supreme Court would only be impactful for students behind me.
And were you going to school in the St. Louis area at the time?
I was going to Washington University.
What did you study at WashU, and did you being involved in the case have any influence on what you majored in college?
So I studied political science, and it probably had an impact. I know the case made me keenly aware of political systems and the government and how it worked. And at WashU, that's pretty much what I studied. I focused on American government in my classwork, and my degree was in political science.
After you graduated from Hazelwood, did you keep in touch with anyone still at the school, and did you know how the case being in the Supreme Court was affecting the journalism program there?
I didn't keep in touch with anybody in the journalism program, but I knew what was going on at the school. My brother was still a student at Hazelwood East, so I knew about the day-to-day things going on through him. However, I was not still in contact with anybody in the journalism program or the yearbook program.
All right, so as this case was making its way up to the Supreme Court, what was your involvement in the legal process specifically?
After the district court level, the role of the plaintiffs really sort of takes a back seat, and it becomes more of the legal arguments between lawyers on opposing sides. We generally, the plaintiffs do all their work at the district court level. We get deposed, and we testify, and we sit in courtrooms and get interviewed, and so on and so forth. And then after that, most of it is paperwork, and then oral arguments at the appellate level and at the Supreme Court level, and plaintiffs aren't involved in that part of it.
So how did it come to be that the three of you, were the ones who were involved in this all the way through to the Supreme Court?
Well, initially we all went to the ACLU together. The entire staff went to the ACLU together. And then just over time, kids fell away, my dad gave me permission to be part of it, and I was pretty committed to the ideal of young people having a say and nobody taking that right away from them. So I stayed committed to it, as did Leanne and Kathy. And so we kept moving forward. And as plaintiffs fell away, we were what was left.
Did you ever get any say in like the legal decisions being made? Would your lawyers like consult you, or would they just kind of inform you as to what was going on?
They didn't inform us. I mean, you have to remember, I mean, we started this at 17 years old. 17 and 18, I couldn't even sign consent to sue. So I got my dad to do that for me. But I didn't, I don't have the legal background to have a say in a legal argument. They kept us apprised of everything that's going on, and they let us know how they were approaching everything. Outside of our role at the district court level and our depositions and our testimony, we weren't we didn't at least I didn't busy myself with the legal landscape.
Yeah, of course. So now moving on to the actual Supreme Court oral arguments. First of all, were you in DC at the actual oral argument?
I was. We all were. It was very interesting. It was an interesting experience. One of the things that sticks out in my mind is there were only 8 justices at the time. One had passed away, so there were just 8 left. And so we always had this feeling that if there was a tie, we could go back to the appellate court decision. And that was something that is in the back of our minds, or at least in the back of my mind. And so I'm not... the arguments as they took place in court were very interesting as well. It's not like anything I've ever seen before. It's not like TV at all. Nothing like that. So it was the justices asking our lawyers, or the lawyers on both sides, questions and putting them in hypothetical situations and having them try to explain their points using logic and legal precedents to help the justices understand what they're arguing for.
Had the 3 of you, you and Cassie and Leanne, kept in touch at all?
No, it's been years. It's been years.
So what was it like to all see each other again, like at the Supreme Court several years after this had occurred?
It was interesting. I think at the time Leanne was married and Kathy and I were in college, so we're just catching up. Leanne was a year older than Kathy and I, so we had, she'd gone her a different way right off the bat. So this happened in my junior year. We began the process in my junior year and Leanne's senior year. So right afterwards, she graduated and went on to her adult life. And Kathy and I had to stay in high school and deal with suing the high school at the same time. We made it through, though.
So as this was like going on in your life, did you talk about being involved in this case to the people around you?
No, not really. It wasn't a huge topic of conversation. It would only come up when something interesting would happen, like winning at the appellate court level or losing at the Supreme Court level or needing to go to the Supreme Court. That's the only time it ever came up. And being a student and being at that part of my life, that was my main focus. Going to school, doing the things that kids in college do.
When it did come up, like when you went to DC to go to the Supreme Court, how did the people around you react to that? Were they impressed?
I wouldn't say they were impressed. They were intrigued. A lot of people didn't get it. A lot of people still don't get it. I was married to a lawyer, and he said he doesn't understand what we were fighting for. I thought that was interesting. However, um, no, I don't think they were impressed. Impressed was not something that they were. I think that, like I said, they were pretty intrigued. And that's about it.
So, how did you find out about the decision and how did it make you feel?
Again, because I was at that point in my life where I was doing internships at local television stations. I probably heard there first. It's probably doing something like that, or radio station, newspaper, news station. I did internships at both. So I probably heard there first, and then I heard from my lawyer that we had lost. And I was disappointed, obviously. I was very disappointed. I still firmly believe that children have a right to express themselves. Young people have a right to express themselves, because at 17 or 18 years old, you're not a child. Young people.
Has your perspective on the case changed at all as you've gotten older and had kids of your own?
Yes, obviously. I am a mother now. I have a 15-year-old and a 19-year-old at the moment. I totally understand. I can understand where the justices are coming from. I understand wanting to control the information and the things that my children are exposed to, and being the person who makes the decision when that sort of information, and making, I am so sorry.
It's okay.
Making sure that when they, I want to be the person who controls the information that they are exposed to. However, when they are exposed to the information, I feel that it is important to listen to what they have to say.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important to not silence their voices. And that's what the spectrum was. It was a group of young people and their voices. And to me, censoring it was censoring teenage voices.
Mm-hmm. For sure. So do you still live in the St. Louis area? And
I do.
Your kids, where do they go to school?
I have one who is at the community college, St. Louis area community college, and I have another son. I have a daughter at the community college and a son at Chaminade College Preparatory School.
Are either of them involved in student journalism at all?
Neither of them are involved in student journalism. It's very interesting that you should say that. Neither are journalists. My daughter writes really well. But that's not her thing.
All right. So in what way, if at all, did this case impact your life?
It's like a trivia kind of thing. It's my boss. I had to. I'm supposed to be at a staff meeting right now, and so I had to tell my boss where it was going to be. And so I was telling her about it. And that's a part of my life she didn't know about. She didn't know that I had done this, that I had been in a case that had gone in the Supreme Court. And I know there are books in this classroom that talk about this case. Right? I know that this has come up again and again and again, and so, but still people don't know this about me. And so it's that one piece of trivia about me that people don't know. And I can even say, when you're doing something like 2 truths, 3 truths and a lie, or 2 truths and a lie, right? That game. And I'll put it there. Most people will always think that the Supreme Court is the lie. But it's not. It's the truth. So I told her, I emailed her back. She said, I didn't know this about you. And I said, yeah, it was my 15 seconds of fame, or my 15 minutes of fame. It happened when I was 18 years old.
All right, so now you are a teacher, and how has this experience informed you in your career as a teacher?
Well, like I said, I became far more politically engaged in trying to understand the government. And it survives. It's the one thing that I continue to do. I love my job. Yeah, I think it was exactly what I was meant to do. However, I think the most important part of my job is teaching civic engagement. And so when I teach, and I do teach civics to fourth graders, believe it or not, just basic civics, just the basics, right? We do the 10 amendments to the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. And so I always tell them that if I don't teach you anything else, this is the most important thing I will teach you. You must listen to this. And then we sit in the First Amendment for quite a while. I really harp on those 5 freedoms. Mostly freedom of speech, because they can wrap their minds around freedom of speech. Freedom of press is really difficult for them, especially because they really don't know what press looks like. Mm-hmm. You know, when I grew up, press was a lot different. These kids aren't reading newspapers. Okay. And that's what we would do at my house when I was growing up. We'd sit and read the newspaper. I know that's the first thing my grandfather did every morning is get the newspaper. And I'd sit next to my grandpa reading the funnies. This is an experience that these kids have. You know, it's 2024. They don't read newspapers anymore.
And then why do you think it's so important to emphasize you're teaching students their First Amendment rights and all of the rights that they have?
I believe that for us to continue to be a functioning democracy, children, young people need to be civically engaged. Mm-hmm. And if they don't know what their rights are, they are more likely to give them up freely. So I think that's why it's really important for them to be civically engaged.
Yeah, for sure. So last question before the end of this interview, you touched on this briefly before, but how do you feel about how the press has evolved over the course of your life and how it plays out with your students today?
So, and I did. Right after school, right after college, I worked at a local newspaper and a local television station over the course of 5 years. The first 5 years out of college, I was attempting to do the journalism thing. And I didn't know at the time what it would become. I got out of the newspaper business before it became a shell of itself. It's not the same thing. And the access to information is greater than it ever has been because of the internet. But unfortunately, it's not quality information. And the role of the press has been delegitimized, not only by the society, but by the press itself. And this we talked about this earlier. We talked about how the local news is more like the tidbits of what's happening in our world, and that in-depth reporting that we used to have doesn't exist anymore, and we are looking for that in the wrong places. We're looking for our information on Instagram and YouTube and X and Facebook, and those aren't vetted sources. They haven't been checked by a reporter and checked by a researcher and checked by an editor and checked by a publisher. So we are prone to lots of misinformation. And I think it's sad that we're there. I think it's really impacting where we are headed in our future.
For sure. And then I think that makes your role as a teacher even more important to make sure that the kids understand what rights they have and where to get information from.
Correct. That is one of my roles. So not only do I want them to understand their rights, I also want them to understand the value of the press, that it has been vetted, and finding reliable resources. That's very, very important, is how to help them discern information from misinformation.